Diabolic Wars, Chapter 2. The Devil's Attributes in His Wars. We ought to know the attributes of our enemy and the manner in which he fights, in order to know how to fight him. What then are the attributes of the devil? How does he fight? Does he have a constant manner of fighting, or does he change his methods according to the circumstances? This is the subject which we want to examine, so that we may resist him, as St. Paul the Apostle says, lest Satan should take advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. 2 Corinthians 2:11. According to the Holy Bible, we know the following about the devil. Number 1. He is an unceasing fighter. Since his fall, the devil's main concern has been to fight and combat. He has always been a fighter. Even before overthrowing our forefathers Adam and Eve, he overthrew multitudes of heavenly angels who followed him and became his various powers. Since then, it has become his hobby to overthrow others. He began to fight all, and as he overthrew some of the angelical cherubim, principalities, dominions, and powers, we saw him fight God's prophets, apostles, and anointed. He also fights the secluded hermits, anchorites, and monks, and anyone who loves God. He fights whoever he knows to be in good condition or living in righteousness. He is called the opponent and resistant because he always resists God's kingdom and opposes his will. He is also called the dragon, the old serpent, Satan, and the devil. Revelation 12:9. And before the crucifixion he was given the name the ruler of this world. John 14:30. He never stops fighting, never tires, nor takes a rest. He always walks about like a roaring lion. 1 Peter 5:8. In the story of Job, he told God twice that he was busy from going to and fro on the earth and from walking back and forth on it. Job 1:7 and 2 verse 2. He watches his victims continuously and throws his seeds everywhere. Wherever the Lord plants wheat, he comes and plants tares. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. Matthew 13 verse 25. Not only does he fight men, but he even fights angels. He contended with the archangel Michael, disputing over the body of Moses the prophet, Jude 9, and resisted one of the angels of the Lord who tried to save Joshua the high priest from him, Zechariah 3 verse 1 and 2. He also resisted the angel whom the Lord sent to Daniel the prophet for 21 days until the archangel Michael interfered to help him, Daniel chapter 10 verse 12 and 13. We find what is more amazing in the divine revelation, and war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon and his angels. Revelation 12 verse 7. He fights on earth and in the heavens, and although all his wars end in his destruction and defeat, he cannot stop fighting, because this has become part of his nature. Another attribute of the devil is Number 2, he is powerful. That is because he is one of the angels who excel in strength, according to the description of the psalmist in Psalm 103, verse 20. As an angel, he lost his purity, but he did not lose his powerful nature. Thus, the apostle described him as a roaring lion, 1 Peter 5:8, and in the story of Job, he struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Job 2 verse 7. He could also raise a violent wind which smote the corners of Job's house, and it fell upon the young men, and they died. Job 1 verse 19. Many spiritual matters prove his power. Among these are the following. He was able to mislead the whole world in the days of the flood. Only one family was saved, and that is the family of our father Noah, Genesis 6. God found that the only solution to cleanse the earth from corruption was to destroy every living being from the face of the earth. The same is said of Sodom. God did not find even 10 righteous persons for whose sake he would have had mercy on that city. Genesis 18:32. He found only the family of Lot, 4 people, one of whom was Lot's wife, who perished outside the city. Lot's 2 daughters sinned after leaving Sodom, and Lot himself, dwelling among them, tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds. 2 Peter 2:8. The power of the devil appears also in beguiling the whole world into paganism. How could he lead the whole world, except one nation, into paganism in the old times? It is a dangerous matter. Even that one nation fell into the worship of idols. When Moses the prophet was on the mountain, his people made for themselves a molded calf and offered burnt offerings to it, saying, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." Exodus 32 verses 1 through 6. In the days of Elijah the prophet, during the reign of Ahab the king, there were among God's people 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of the groves. This means that there were 850 false prophets who ate at Queen Jezebel's table. 1 Kings 18 verse 19. The books of Kings and Chronicles tell us that many of the kings of Judah and Israel fell into the worship of idols. The power of the devil appears also in overthrowing Solomon the wise into the worship of idols. Solomon, the wisest man on earth, who was granted wisdom from God himself, 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 12, to whom God appeared twice, 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 5, chapter 9 verse 2, is said in the Holy Bible to have become a worshipper of idols. For it was so, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not loyal to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 4 through 8. Indeed, what a striking and dangerous tragedy, which shows us the extent of the devil's power. Among the proofs of the devil's power is what he will do in the last days. That is when Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 corners of the earth. Revelation 20, verse 7 and 8. He shall even deceive the elect, if possible, through the false Christs and prophets whom he will send with great signs and wonders. Matthew 24, verse 24. The danger of his violent work throughout that hard time is expressed by the Lord. Unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Matthew 24, verse 22. In those days, the devil will also send the Antichrist, the man of sin who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 9 and 10. As a result of the devil's power, there will come a falling away first. This will take place before the coming of Christ, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. But we thank God that those hard days will be shortened, and the wicked Antichrist will be consumed with the spirit of the mouth of the Lord, and be destroyed with the brightness of his coming, 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 8. Among the other examples of the devil's power are the following. He could speak through a great apostle like St. Peter. Thus the Lord rebuked him. "Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me." Matthew 16, verses 22 and 23. He also sifted the 12 apostles, so the Lord prayed for Peter that his faith would not fail. Luke 22, verses 21 and 32. He overthrew men of valor like David and Samson. He destroyed the prophet Balaam and ruined one of St. Paul's disciples, that is Demas. All his victims are strong. All who were slain by her were strong men. Proverbs 7, verse 26. The words of David the prophet are true indeed. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished. 2 Samuel 1, verse 27. Another example of his power is throwing down many people. Some people needed that the devil be cast out of them, of whom it was said that they had evil spirits, and about whom the Lord said to his disciples, "Cast out devils." Matthew 10, verse 8. One of these people had legion, Mark 5, verse 9, and neither could any man tame him. At that time, the disciples of the Lord were unable to cast out some of those devils. So the Lord said to them, "This kind can come out by nothing but prayer and fasting." Mark 9, verse 29. Perhaps because of this power, the devil, God bound him 1,000 years. And he cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal on him so that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. But after these things he must be released for a little while. Revelation 20, verse 2 and 3. This talk about the power of the devil should not make you fear him. No. Though the devil is powerful, God is more powerful than him. Not only did God subdue the devil for us, but he let many of the fathers conquer him, and the devil even feared them. We will return to this point in due time, if God wills. Another important aspect of the devil's character as our opponent is, number 3, he is experienced in fighting and knows our nature. The devil has been fighting man for more than 7,000 years since Adam. Imagine what experience he has gained from his fight with humanity. Undoubtedly, he is the creature most capable of understanding the human soul and how to fight it. He has examined the human soul very well and knows the strong and weak points in it, as well as the way to fight it. The devil is the greatest psychologist and psychoanalyst. Psychology to him is not mere theories, but an experience on the practical and scientific levels, and on a great scale, which includes humanity as a whole. Thus, he knows when he should fight, how to fight, and when to wait. He knows the gates to the mind and to the heart. Other qualities which appear in the devil's wars are, number 4, he is intelligent and resourceful. He is called the old serpent. Revelation 20, verse 2, chapter 12, verse 9. And the Holy Bible says that now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field. Genesis 3, verse 1. He is intelligent and wise in evil, and the Bible requires us to be wise as serpents. Matthew 10, verse 16. The wisdom of the devil is all mischief, malice, and subtlety. The devil's intelligence appears in that he changes his plans and methods according to the circumstances. Among his dangerous wiles are lying, deceit, and beguilement, which he weaves so intelligently that the person fought cannot be aware of it. He may also introduce sin disguised as virtue, and so on. How abundant are the wiles of the devil! We shall allocate for them a special chapter in this book, which may be its main chapter. Among the other attributes of the devil is the following. Number 5, he is a liar. He lied when he said to our forefathers Adam and Eve, "You will not surely die, and you will be like God." Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. Lying is a distinctive characteristic of the devil, so the Lord said about him, "He is a liar and the father of it." John 8, verse 44. It was said so that we might not believe or be deceived by anything said by the devil. The lies of the devil are not only the words which he utters, but there is also something far more dangerous. There are the false prophets and false Christs whom he sends. The Lord warns us against them, saying, "Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There,' do not believe it, for false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect." Matthew 24, verses 23 and 24. Of course, the signs and wonders which they will give are from the devil, as it is said of the Antichrist. The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9. An example is the devil's speaking through the mouths of false prophets. He says about persuading King Ahab to make him perish, "I will persuade him. I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets." 1 Kings 22, verses 21 and 22. Just as the Holy Spirit speaks through the mouths of the holy prophets, so the devil speaks through the false prophets. The devil also tells his lies in false dreams and visions. How abundant are the wars faced by the monks through such false dreams and visions. Some of these are included in the Paradise of the Fathers. An example of this is the appearance of the devil to a monk, saying, "I am the angel Gabriel. The Lord sent me to you." But the monk replied humbly, "I am a sinner. I don't deserve to see an angel. Perhaps you are sent to another one and you missed the way." The lie was revealed, and the devil departed and disappeared. Another example is his appearance to a monk, saying to him, "I am Christ. Worship me." The monk said in his heart, "I worship my Lord Christ every day. Why does then he ask me to do so?" In this way, the wile and the lie were discovered. The monk rebuked him, and he departed. How abundant also are the false dreams by which the devil misleads people, making them think that the dreams are from God. St. Paul the Apostle said of these false visions of the devil, "For Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light." 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14. In the story of Father Gallion the anchorite, the devils appeared to him in the form of roaming fathers wishing to join them. He did not discover that they were devils except when they led him astray in the wilderness, mocking and leaving him scornfully. However, God's mercy saved him due to his devoutness, purity of heart, and his previous toil. The lies of the devil appear also in the words of magicians and diviners, etc. Thus the Lord commanded, "You shall not learn to follow the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God drives them out from before you." Deuteronomy 18, verse 9 through 12. Perhaps this verse reveals to us another thing: the falsehood of the devil in consulting spirits of the dead and necromancy. In such meetings, he may pretend to be the spirit of a certain person, giving those present some deceiving information which he knows about that person and his family. If they believe him, he begins to tell them gradually things to mislead them, all of which is falsehood and feigning of the devil to deceive people. Among his lies is also what he says through the mouths of astrologers and those who claim the knowledge of the unknown. Whether through astrology, palmistry, geomancy, reading coffee cups, or fortune-telling by various ways and methods, it is theologically evident that no one but God alone knows the unknown, so whoever claims knowledge of the unknown is untrue. All the temptations of the devil are kinds of falsehood. He makes man imagine some happiness to be gained from sin, whether it be pleasure, authority, benefit, dignity, or glory. And when one fails, one discovers that all the temptations of the devil are merely a vanishing mirage and falsehood. This is what he did with Adam and Eve, making them imagine that they would be like God, and making Solomon imagine that he would be happy with the abundant joys and luxuries surrounding him. But Solomon found that all was vanity and vexation of spirit. Ecclesiastes 2. It is always the method of the devil that he adorns the way of sin and gives it beautiful qualities to tempt whoever falls in his nets. Yet all his ornaments are falsehoods through which he hides the ugliness of sin and its evil results. The daydreams which he offers to his victims are all falsehoods as well. He offers them these dreams as a kind of pleasure which would drug them against positive work. Thus they live through these dreams in false imagination, building palaces of sand, imagining glories, pleasures, and joys. Then they awake and find nothing of all this, but that the devil has wasted their time, detained them from useful work, and given them false comfort. Among the lying schemes of the devil is deluding the person who commits suicide into thinking that death will relieve him from his troubles. He concentrates on the point that there is no use in this life, and there is no solution for the person's problems but death, the only solution by which he can get rid of all his troubles and have comfort. When the person believes him and kills himself, he finds no rest, but finds himself in hell, in weariness and pain, inevitable and incomparable with all and any worldly troubles. He discovers then that death does not put an end to his troubled life, but is the beginning of a more troublesome one. The devil has deceived him through lies, misled him, and destroyed him. Almost all sins are hidden behind one of the devil's lies. The devil suggests to the thief that no one will see him or discover his theft. He suggests the same thing to the smuggler, the briber, and the fraudulent. In all this, the devil lies because God sees, and everything is revealed before him, even though the human eye cannot see. He suggests to the murderer that the victim deserved to be killed, and that his life was a mistake which needed to be corrected, or that murder washes out shame which stains his honor, or that it comforts the soul of a deceased relative. Perhaps atheism is the greatest falsehood offered by the devil to humanity. He lied when he suggested to the existentialists that God's existence hinders their own existence, and when he suggested to the Marxists that God lives in a high tower and does not care for the human society, letting the oppressor oppress and the rich enslave the poor. Another attribute of the devil is, number 6, he is insistent. He is very insistent, never getting weary. He may offer a certain thought many, many times, and continues to offer it even though it is refused by people. A person may yield and submit due to the continuous pressure and insistence. It is stated in the Paradise of the Fathers that the devil fought one of the monks with one sin for 50 years without ceasing, getting desperate without getting weary. Even when he was fighting the Lord Jesus Christ, he did not cease after his failure in the second, first, or third temptation. Though the Lord rebuked him and he departed, it was not forever, as St. Luke the Evangelist says. Now when the devil had ended every temptation, he departed from him until an opportune time. Luke 4, verse 13. The term "for a season" means that he returned to tempt him another time, and many more times. The devil never gets desperate due to any failure, and never gets ashamed, but always returns. When he failed in the first temptation of Job, he demanded again to tempt him harder, and when he failed in all his temptations to the Lord Jesus Christ, he came to him when he was on the cross and said, "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Matthew 27, verse 40. The devil, insisting to overthrow people, does not acknowledge any obstacles. He does not care that Adam and Eve are created after the image and likeness of God. Genesis 1. He does not care that David is the anointed of the Lord, nor that Solomon is the wisest man on all earth, nor that Peter the apostle is very enthusiastic for Christ, nor that Joshua is the high priest, Zechariah 3, nor that Aaron is the chief priest, Exodus 32, and Samson a Nazarite of the Lord. And the Spirit of the Lord began to move him, Judges 13. He does not care about the positions or spirituality of people, but strikes, whatever the result may be. Since he dared to tempt Christ the Lord of glory, would he not dare to tempt mortals? He casts his poisons every now and then on everyone, and perhaps he who does not perish by it today perishes the next day, next year, or even after 20 years. The devil is persistent, active, importunate, and persevering. He is not disheartened by failure, Nor does he get desperate due to the high spirituality of people. He proceeds in his plan to destroy God's kingdom and to mislead even the elect. If he cannot defile someone's body, he defiles his thoughts at least. And whoever refuses his attacks on their spirituality is given at least a thorn in the flesh. If he cannot overthrow God's children, he at least accuses them. Thus he is called the accuser.